I don't really like the phrase bucket list. I'm all about getting things done before I get that terminal prognosis. But seeing as we're all stuck at home in what is now week number 5 of the coronavirus lockdown in the UK, seriously, week 5, where has the time gone? Creating bucket lists is pretty much all we've got at the moment. So I wanted to share my top 10 items on the list. Hi, my name's John Hayes, and you're listening to episode 3 of the Follow the Blue Line podcast, now streaming across Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Podbean, and YouTube. I recently wrote a blog post proclaiming that the time for adventure was almost certainly now. Well, just a matter of weeks after it was first published, that time has come and gone, certainly for the foreseeable future. There's a lesson there for us all. If you want to do something in life, the best time to do it is straight after you've thought about it. I've been doing a lot of thinking recently, mainly on my bike. I'm lucky to live in a fairly rural area, and I've been able to get out for a quick 19-mile ride pretty much every day of the lockdown as part of my exercise regime while maintaining the strict guidelines around social distancing. I'll typically do this ride in the morning. It takes me through a few villages near to the town where I live and along the coast. It's not the most exciting ride, but I'm glad I've got it to keep me sane. Last week, I didn't manage to leave the house until late in the afternoon, and I was thoroughly depressed by the time I pulled my bike from the shed. If you're managing to get out on a regular ride, you'll know exactly how I feel. You'll feel it even more so if you cannot get out during this particularly difficult time. So what's on my lockdown bucket list? By the way, if you want to share your bucket list with me, head over to facebook.com/follow the blue line book and let me know your thoughts. This doesn't need to be a hardcore challenge. I asked some of my friends on the Facebook page recently what would be on their COVID-19 bucket list, and Warden said she'd settle for a cup of coffee and a pastel de nata outside at a cafe in the sunshine with friends, and I could certainly relate to that. So number 1 on my list, we have a coast-to-coast bike ride across the UK. This, if it happens, will actually be the second time I've done this. My first C2C was from Southport to Hornsey across the Trans-Pennine Trail. I did it with my father-in-law and some of his friends a few years back, and it was really my first introduction to long-distance riding. I learned a lot on that ride. First and foremost, stopping for a quick pint at lunchtime is nice. Stopping for 4 pints of Guinness is just foolish. Also, just because somebody looks like they can read a map doesn't mean they can, and it's always a good idea to speak up if you think they're wrong. I'm hoping to tackle one of the shorter C2C routes in a single trip this time, as opposed to the 3 days on the last trip. Alternatively, I might invite the pieters along and make a weekend of it. And number 2, obviously, I want to cycle Ecovia along the Algarve in Portugal. For anyone who follows me on social media or has read my book, Follow the Blue Line, Cycling the Algarve, they'll know there's no place on earth I'd rather ride my bike than along the Algarve coast. It's something I've done many times before and something I'm pleased to have shared with many of my friends. This year we were due to do our 5th anniversary ride in May, but COVID-19 put a stop to that. I've just received notification from Ryanair telling me our flight was cancelled, so I've put in for a refund. Let's see how long they hold onto my money for. Hopefully the ride will be back on schedule in November, if not sometime early next year, but we'll just have to wait and see. By the way, if you've not checked out the book, it's available from all good bookshops, but if you'd rather not wait until they're open again, check out the Kindle edition on Amazon. Number 3, I want to ride an e-bike up the Rock of Gibraltar. I've never ridden an e-bike before, and I don't typically do hills, so this might make a nice change. I do quite a bit of work down in Gibraltar on the day job, and I've always fancied the idea of cycling up the rock, but very much doubt without the aid of a little propulsion I've got the strength in my legs. Gibraltar's a funny place. I think you either love it or hate it. I love it. Over the years, I've discovered many of its charms, often just a short walk away from the bars and cheap cigarette shops on Main Street, which, along with the famous apes, is pretty much most tourists see of the place. The rock is absolutely beautiful, and I can imagine no better way to explore it than by e-bike. Luckily, there's a company that specialises in e-bike tours of the rock, and this isn't a paid-for promotion. You can check them out on Facebook at ebike-Gibraltar. Number 4, I'd like to ride down a volcano in Tenerife. Okay, perhaps the complete opposite of cycling up the Rock of Gibraltar. This one's a lot easier. Apparently there's a 22-mile bike ride down Mount Tide in Tenerife. Again, absolutely no commercial partnerships in place here, but if you want to learn more, check out Mr. Bike Tenerife on Google. And number 5, I quite like the idea of bike packing somewhere really remote. So while I've got a lot of long distance rides under my belt, I've always found a reasonably comfortable hotel to rest my head at night. Well, nearly always. There was a terrible place in Portimao once, right on the beach, but directly across the road from the world's loudest nightclub. For many years, I fancied camping out on my multi-day cycling trips. I don't know how many hours I've lost to looking at tiny tents and sleeping bags that stuff down into amazingly compact packs. I've actually got quite anxious at times thinking about what kind of cooking stove I should take on the road with me, and stressed for hours about the perfect combination of bike packing bags versus standard panniers. Let's face it, there's a lot of fetishism, if that's the right word, about the kit you can take when you go bike packing. The one thing that concerns me about bike packing is just where do you sleep? There are so many videos on YouTube where hardcore bike packers find a bush or a ditch or a drainage pipe and just crash for the night. I don't know if I'm tough enough for that. Perhaps I need to find a halfway house and perhaps camp at a campsite with showers and perhaps even a bar. Needless to say, this would be a lot more fun with a fellow pie eater in tow. I floated the ideas of camping on our next trek across Portugal, and I'm afraid to say it's been a resounding no, soft lads. Number 6, family ride across Belgium. Late last year, I took the ferry from Hull across to Zeebrugge in Belgium and then cycled around 85 miles to Brussels in the pissing rain. I just got over a bout of flu at the time and, on one hand, found the whole experience rather miserable, but on the other hand, absolutely loved it. The route took me through Bruges and Ghent, and they're both absolutely stunning, and I really enjoyed the 2 nights I spent on the boat where I just chilled in the corner of the bar with a good book. Anyway, on my return, my partner Sarah said she'd really like to do something similar, and then our good friends Phil and Lucy said they'd like to come along too. This time I'm going to split the route up over 2 days and hopefully spend a bit of time in the bars and cafes along the way, and hopefully it won't rain. Number 7, I really need to write a new book. It's about time I wrote another book. I've actually written 5. 4 of them are business titles, but my last one, Follow the Blue Line, Cycling the Algarve, which this podcast is built around, was something I really enjoyed doing. I've started with a couple of ideas, but they've not really taken off yet. Now here's the thing. I believe if you want to write a great book, you need to live an extraordinary life. Perhaps some of the mini adventures in this list will help me find my next title. Number 8, Land's End to John Groats. Okay, this is probably more of a pipe dream than a bucket list item. It's a long way and I just don't know where I'll find the time. Perhaps when numbers come up on the lottery, although I'll have to start playing it first though, because you've got to be in it to win it. Number 9, ride along the Danube from Vienna to Budapest. Okay, this is perhaps much more achievable. I used to live in Budapest and would regularly take the train from Budapest to Vienna. Memory tells me this journey took around 3 hours, so it would make a great 2-day cycle ride. It'd be great to catch up with some old friends in the city of Győr, which is about the halfway point between the two cities. I did a big ride in Hungary a couple of years ago around Lake Balaton, where we all drank far too much, and on the last day, it absolutely pissed it down. Of course it did. Finally, number 10, Lisbon to Faro on a Brompton. So this is the last one on the list for the time being, and it's a twist on my usual ride along the Algarve. I want to fly into Lisbon and then fly out of Faro, cycling between the 2 airports and Brompton. I just really like the idea of turning up at the airport with a folding bike, almost, but not quite, hand luggage, and not worrying about bike hire or transporting a full-size bike in a bike box. It'd be really interesting to see how a Brompton would cope over a long ride, and let's face it, the really rough tracks along the way. So that's my COVID-19 bucket list. What's the first thing you're going to do when lockdown is lifted and we get back to the new normal? Share your comments with me on Facebook at facebook.com/followthebluelinebook. With that, my name's John Hayes. You've been listening to the Follow the Blue Line podcast. Don't forget to check out the book on Amazon, and I'll catch up with you again very soon.